please.
Ohayo.
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 Ohayo. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. Sayonara. I love you.
Which the children object to, but the adults.
Okay. So first, I want to say hi to everybody, and actually my presentation was in Farsi, so I'm just speaking in English. Sorry if there is any problem. First of all, I want to say thanks to Hadi and Hashayar for inviting me. I was, for many years, I was sitting just the other side of this table, and I was never thinking that I'm going to do it on this side. So I'm going to present Ouzo that I love so much, and I'm going to use a lot of fart word in this presentation, but it's actually better in English anyways. I was going to use in Farsi, and I was going to apologize because I know it's different.
What is in Farsi?
But in English I think it's easier. Okay, so first of all, I wanna say what resources I use. Sorry, for my all presentation is in Farsi, but I explain. So I used the History of Cinema by David Bordwell and Christian Thompson, the book, which was the translation actually. I used the Criterion collection, so this part was actually from one of the supplements from David Carnes that I used. And there is another supplement by David Bordwell that I'm going to use again, just a short part. I used this book, the book that Hadi has, Ozu and the Poetics of Cinema by David Bordwell. It has lots of pictures, I'm going to use that, and also article from the Paris Review for 2017. And also whatever else I'm adding, I should say that whatever I learned, it's from Ms. Moazes in her wonderful cinema classes. So I hope if I have learned anything actually. About Ozu, let's just say in Japan there are two different genres that are totally different from Hollywood genres. There is a Jidai Geki genres, which is like all history, this all samurai things that we have watched a lot, and also Gendai Geki, which is about all like the normal life of every day. And Ozu is actually considered one of the most important filmmakers of these genres, the Gendai Geki genres. And David Bordwell, in this book, in the introduction, it says, all of Ozu's films are exactly like each other. They are all about Japanese families and about family dramas, like everyday life without any accident, anything happening. And this film is actually, although it's like comedy and very different from his like famous like family dramas, but it's again the same thing about everyday like usual life without anything happening. So Ozu started his filmmaking at the age of 24, but his fame started when he made this film, I Was Born But, in 1932, which is silent black and white movie, and it's interesting that this Good Morning actually is a kind of remaking of that silent movie actually, but like a loose remaking. Ozu, although we know that he is famous for his dramas, but he started with comedies, interesting. And he was influenced by Chaplin, by Lubitsch, by Harold Lloyd. And he lived for 60 years, 1903 to 1963, and made 54 films, but most of them are like silent movies, and unfortunately many of them has been lost. because actually he was one of the last filmmakers that started using voice, like sound in his films. His actually masterpiece, as you know, is Tokyo Story 1953, which is in the Sight and Sound magazine, is rated the third biggest films of the history of cinema, actually. And there are other, like lots of other films, like the most important ones, Latest Spring, Floating Weeds, and An Autumn Afternoon. And actually for me, it's very difficult to remember which story has which name, because there are lots of these, like exactly as the simple story of his films, the names are very simple, like Latest Spring, Earliest Spring, the middle of, what is the late autumn, or early summer, all of those things, like I never can remember which film has which name. And about his style, Ozu has a very unique style in filmmaking, and which is, he's always getting compared by Mizoguchi, because both of them are like big filmmakers of Japan cinema, and after war especially, and they are exactly, has two different, like exactly opposite styles. Ozu has a very like kind of, how can I say, calmness on his style, on his visual style, and it's actually, they say that during filmmaking he had this this calmness during his filmmaking, like his behavior, his morality. So I want to talk about the style, this unique style, which is the most important one, is this like how can I say, the camera, which doesn't have any movement, like and this exactly this steady camera, exactly like this form is exactly coordinate with his his stories, like stories which are simple and nothing especially happening in them. And also he has this tatami shot that he's using, as you see, this kind of tripods that is like lower than eye level, and it seems that somebody is kneeling on the tatami mat and looking at the scene. Like if you see here, it's exactly like somebody is kneeling on the tatami shot behind those tables. And the other one is about the way that he makes the dialogues between the actors, actresses, that they are, as you know, like in Hollywood, the dialogues are always over shoulder, but Ozu never use over shoulder. It's just as it's like somebody is exactly looking to the camera. So I want to just show you this. Look at this one.
なんて言うんだ。おい、訳してごらん。
So exactly, they are talking to each other, but it seems they are looking into the camera. So
大変ね。習慣になっちゃったんだ。
何が？
especially look
この
at
頃流
the
行って
ball.
た。
As
ちょっとここべしゃべしゃしてごらんよ。
I think I'm just a little back.
バカだな。
じゃあ大丈夫か？大丈夫だ。
どうしたんだ？
I'm sorry, I think I'm just losing which part it is going to show. Okay, here.
そんなバカなことを誰に聞いたんだい？
全然違う
Yeah,
はず
see?
よ。
Exactly, he's
Another
looking
also
into the camera. And
Yeah,
he
I
never
got it in
uses
there.
over shoulder.
う
And
ん
it's just
本当だよ。
turning
No.
this 180
No.
degree
No.
shift
No.
from one to the other. And the interesting part is just here that I'm going to talk about later. So, and the other one is the way that he, when he wants to transit from one scene to the other, or from one scene to the other, he never uses like dissolving or fade in, fade out. He always has this this fixed scenes from like buildings or nature, like this one, as you see, from sequence 1 when we are going to sequence 2 of the film, he shows these buildings of the Tokyo. So you know that, and after that we go right into the home of the English tutor. And the good thing about this is that the second time that we see these buildings, we know that we are going into the English teacher house. So it has this effect too. So, and last is that he was using like the fixed like staff during his filmmaking. Kogo Noda, which was the screenwriter, and in this film too, the photographer was Yuhara Atsuta, and the famous actors like Chishiro Ayo, which was the father of Minoru and Isamu, and Setsuko Hara was the woman, is the actress not in this film, but Sugimura was the mom of Mr. Haraguchi in this film. That they have like been using like working with Ozu for many years. So we saw this, and about this film, the interesting thing is about this red color. That it starts in titrage of the film, as you see, and then it goes like in the like it's almost impossible that like I can say in all of the shots you can see red color. It's hard not to find it. Look at here, like how many red colors you can see, even here, the socks, on the wall, on the shirt, and also here when it is outside, you see the colors in this corner, and also in the city, in the restaurant you can see all the red colors, and in the school, if you look, there are too many, and here, in like the two main actors, this red line on their shirts, actually, and the whole film, they are using the same clothes, and this red line like shows like on them. And right here about Isamu. Isamu like actually worked with Ozu in 3 other films, and David Carnes in this supplement was talking about how he looks like as a comedy, like a comic picture of perspective, like why I like how can I say, eyes so wide and the big nose but very small mouth. It's just like a comic picture, like playing with perspective actually. And also this one, you can see the red color, the first shot, the red color of the shirt, and then exactly the next shot is the red color of this lamp. They are exactly located in the same points of the shot, as you can see. And David Bortwell says that he actually theorized like about graphic match from this film that he formulated. And I love this second shot. I love this the shoes, high heel shoes over there. So that it's red, and also it's a sign of modernity in coming into the traditional Japan culture. And also I love this from the book. It's interesting. Like you see, the film starts with like on Wednesday, scene 1. The first shot is the what do you say this?
The posts.
The post, yeah. The post in like the in the front and the laundry at the back, and then it goes ahead to the houses and the fence, and then it goes to the street down to the hill, and then closer to the hill and the hillside. Scene 5 on Thursday, it omits the first 2 shots, and it starts with the street and like close to the hill and the hill. Scene 10 Friday is close to the hill and the hill, and scene Saturday is just the hill. It's just like, to me, it's like music. It's like playing with the notes. And like I showed all of them just to say that Ozu is coming from photography and actually painting, not from literature. That's why like all of his scripts are very like they are like very simple. The stories are very simple because like Abbas Kiarostami, as you say, like you can explain the story just in one line. It's about two brothers going on like strike, kind of silent strike, to have TV in their home. It's just as simple as like Ozu's family dramas, as you can see, and it's as Ozu like it's a family story, but we can say an extended family story of story of 6 families, because we have all 6 families in the film, and you can see like the movement of people, like they move from one house to the other, and even by playing with perspective, you cannot say even one person is in one house or in 2 different houses. Like it's just a big family and everything that goes on. And it's a very simple comedy. David Kahn says it's the 40th movie of Ozu. And it's happening in the favorite theme of Ozu, which is like intergenerational differences between like children and parents with their like parents again, like which happening between Mrs. Haraguchi and grandma. And also it's happening in late 50s in Japan, which is the time that TV, washing machines, and like all these modern American things was coming into the traditional Japan culture. And we can see from the modern Western like clothes that we can see the difference between kimono and the Western clothes that like the aunt is using, or the Tokyo people, the ones that are living in Tokyo, in contrast to the like suburb people. And I love that. That's why I said about the high heel shoes. That's very interesting. And also it's Ozu is like kind of comic, looking at the viewpoint of like people to looking at TV about like generating like all stupidity and that he talks about. But where is the actual theme coming from? Where is it coming from? It's exactly coming from the last scenes of the Act 1, which Minoru is talking about when his dad is like scolding him. He starts talking about like the dad says, "Oh, you are talking too much," and Minoru says, "Yeah, you are talking too much too. Like grown up, like talk too much. Good morning, good evening. How are you doing? I don't know. Like have a good day. How far is it? I see. Like in his eyes, it's all like meaningless talks. And the theme of the film comes exactly from this part. Like it's almost the end of the Act 1, which they go on a strike. And it's about like the kind of how people grow, like adults and children like start communicating, like communication between adults and children, like how it works. About adults, how they communicate in this film, like the social courtesies, the small talks that we use like every day in our life. They have different goals, different. For example, we are a way of connecting to people. Like you can see here this modern woman asked Minoru to say hi to from Big Sister to his English tutor. It's kind of trying to connect to the English teacher that it's obviously seems that he kind of has interest in connecting with him. Or it's used to start like an important conversation, like here. When the Mr. Kamizabi, the new salesman, comes and wanna sell something to Mr. Hayashi, he starts with lovely weather, isn't it? And he says, "Oh yes, it is." And or the other thing we can see is about how they try to avoid the actual conversation. Like here, we can see that Mrs. Haraguchi comes to school. Children and ask them to like stop watching TV, but she starts saying hi and about like, oh, our children like are bothering you to the woman, but that's just like a facade that she doesn't want to say to the woman that why she's here, kind of avoiding. And or also the other thing that they use it like to hide how they feel. Like here, Mrs. Haraguchi feels so embarrassed after she finds out the money is with grandma. So she starts apologizing, saying, "Oh, sorry, I want to crawl into a hole," or "What a nice day." But actually, she is avoiding to show her actual feelings. And also the last one is, but not the least, actually, is about avoiding to say the actual talk, like the real talk that they have to do it, but they are just avoiding. Like here, like the sister of the tutor just say, "Oh, you're off to work," and the aunt answers that, "I'm sorry to bother your brother," or all of those meaningless talks that is going on and on in the film. And but kind of Ozu comes to compare this to how children communicate with each other. So how children start communicating, it's how they use farting, like pushing the forehead and starts farting. Like here in the tutor's house, this pushing the forehead by accident opens up the conversation about the fathers of Zen, like Zen's father taught them how to eat pumice stone to be able to fart on purpose, and it just opens up a conversation between them and the communication. And the interesting part is that after this exactly we can see it cuts to Zen's father that farts, and the mom thinks that he's talking. It's exactly a play between farting and talking that Ozu does here. The other one is actually children use the same kind of conversation like the social courtesies to as adults. Like here on the hillside, when you see that they see their like their teacher by accident, they start like saying Ohio, Ohio, and then when the teacher says, "Oh, don't dwell on the way," they say exactly like the actual Taro things that they say, "Oh, yes sir," and then they start exactly playing again about fighting. So they are doing this exactly the same meaningless talk with each other as adults does. And the last one is the lovely use of "I love you" by Isamu. That he doesn't even know what does it mean or what's the use, and he uses it. Like I found 4 spots that he used. The first one on the right up is when he says it to his mom when he's going to school. The second one to the modern woman, and the third one to the aunt, and the last one is at the end of the movie when they found they have the TV saying to their parents. Just like whenever he finds, like and like how meaningless it is. So exactly Ozu explains about what is the purpose of all of these small talks, and this scene when the tutor says that this is actually, it works like a lubricant, a social lubricant in our world that helps to connect to people, start conversation. And the sister says, but like important things are very difficult to say, but whereas meaningless things are easy to say. It exactly uses the word meaningless. Like these kinds of conversations are meaningless as farting for children are meaningless. And we see here that how these meaningless things, it helps to connect people with each other, because we see that exactly after the strike, they go on silent strike. In the morning, they see Mrs. Haraguchi and they don't answer the Ohio to her, and she feels that something has happened, something strange happened, and she doesn't like. And then when Mrs. Hayashi comes, she doesn't answer her. Like the conversation is cut here, so there is no more communication. So, or after, like the last act, when they have TV, they start again talking, saying Ohio to the moms, and this again start opening the conversation. Oh, that's what's happening, and they say they start saying, oh, they said Ohio, so something is happening. So it opens up the conversation and communication. Like kind of Ozu is kind of downgrading language between adults by this very funny part of the film. This is Zen's father, the master of farting actually. He as the adults think this is a social lubricant for children is meaningless, right? So and Ozu compares this exactly, the small talk with farting, and we can see that here even this is Mr. Okubo, yeah, Zen's father. The farting of him is just mistaken by his wife. And I wanna show you this very interesting. It's just 2 minutes. I wanna like David go dwell on exactly this part. Oh, you don't hear, right?
It is that this becomes the kids' version of communication. It's in social interaction, like saying good morning, but it also shows a kind of prowess, because every time one of them successfully farts, part of the ritual is to swing their arms victoriously. And when the boy can't do it, he can't do it. So the thing is that there's a way in which human communication is downgraded by being compared to farting. The scene of Mr. Kozo and his wife thinking she's being called every time he farts is really, I think, the scene Ozu needed to cement this parallel between spoken language and farting. That there's a case where she's actually mistaking his farts for speech. The farts in the movie are not, I would say, completely real farts. They're tuned farts. They're kind of toned farts. They have different registers. Adults fart differently from kids, and different kids fart differently. There's a little suite of different sounds that farts make in the movie, and that's clearly for fun. I mean, that's clearly part of the artifice of the movie. The other thing that's interesting about this comparison of farting with ordinary casual conversation is that even boys can use meaningless phrases.
Of course, madam. I love you.
When I think of the youngest boy saying, I love you, under all circumstances, it just seems to be like the appropriate thing he'll say. He's really as much a victim of the emptiness of language as anybody, because he doesn't know what that means really. He says it as hello, goodbye, I like you, whatever.
I love you.
Okay. As both explained and most of them. So this inadequacy of language kind of is the comparing of these two, like the farting and this very funny conversation, both of them happening one after the other at the last act, and almost at the end of the film, that Ozu like exactly says what what he meant. In this last scene, it's very funny. They see each other in the train station talking about, oh, what's the night? Well, this is very nice weather. That say, oh, look at that cloud. It's very beautiful, and this is going to be a very nice day. Like it's very funny, but since they're happening exactly, the second scene is happening after the first. It's a very clear comparing between these two, and like masterfully done. The last shot that you see is this shot, as the clothes, like the underwear on the you see underwear in front, and you see the post at the back of the underwear, and it's funny that is exactly the vice versa shot of the first shot that you saw in the film, the post in the front and the clothes at the back. And it's exactly the how Ozu plays with dialogue, like when you talk to each other, conversations, this 180-degree shifts between the people. It's exactly happening at the first and last shot of the film. And now, like at the end, you know the story of all this underwear in the film. And I just put this, I'm not too sure, but I just feel like, I just think the kind of, we can say that Minoru and Isamu, like kind of, they, by avoiding the regular meaningless conversation in the film, they achieve their goal to have the TV at home. And that's it. Like, I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you have enjoyed it.
Any questions from, it was really worth all day waiting. Thank you so much. Any questions? Any?
My question is for showing this movie, what was also what was the exactly Ozo's like message for the film?
As I said, the real message was about the what's the small talks for? Like, is this one, like how the communication, how the conversation between people works, and how it starts, how it ends, and like a comic version, like looking at it as a comic like view to how people get connected to each other, communicate with each other, all of these meaningless things that are actually necessary, kind of, because they are lubricants. Without that, the conversation just stops and there is no more connection between people.
Why?
Why was his message,
why?
or?
Like, it was, in my belief, this is so little about this movie. Like, I think that it has to be something, like, for connection between people, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got what it is, and thank you for your presentation. But why Ozo wanted to say that? What was the point?
What's the point?
I think you mentioned in one of your first slides the couple of themes of the movie, like the westernization of the Japan and families, the relationship between generations, parents and children, and I guess it's how language can help or cannot help. I mean, having English words, English sentences in like Japanese conversations, or having like a Western product, like a TV in the Japanese houses, and how this the communicating all these concepts, all these like concepts that they're after war influenced affecting Japan. I guess so.
I
But-
think you mentioned maybe that.
Yeah, one of the, I think, yeah, you guys, I guess, okay, Matthew, you have a question? Adi?
What do you think about the cuts? You can see lots of cuts. Yeah. What does it mean?
There were many cuts that I explained, like the cuts that like as he started the movie.
Yeah, exactly. You
from
can
one
see
shot to
lots of
another, yeah, exactly. Or like those cuts that are coming, like they are kind of match cuts when it comes to like talking about fighting and it cuts to the fighting. There were lots of them, I think, and or how he introduced the new scene with like those cuts of the buildings or those scenes.
Do you have a theory about that?
Yeah, I think it means we don't know that area good, you know. Everything is, it's not regular. Everything is, you know, it's not perfect. You know, everything is, you know, if you want to compare with first shot and last shot, it's totally different. You know, in the last shot we saw the underwears or something like this because we know that thing. And the first, no. I think it's, yeah, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure.
If you guys don't have any questions, let's wrap up our